welcome to Step 2025, and this is Podster Pop-Up Studio, and joining us today, another amazing guest, Reim El Houni. Reem is a media strategy consultant and an advisor in Dubai, executive producer at Dubai One's DXB, and later in such a nice and a great product that I came across on LinkedIn, which is called On Air Bootcamp, right? I think an amazing media product, so valuable and so relevant for a lot of us. So I'm going to ask you later on about that. Is there anything else I forgot to mention?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm excited to be here. But yes, I think you summarized it. I am obsessed with the world of film, TV content. So as a result, I executive produce a daily show on Dubai One, but my company, TI22 Films, actually supports a lot of events, government projects, video content, and then I have Dubai On Demand, where we help individuals really get more visible. And that's something I'm really, really passionate about, and that's where a lot of the workshops have come in.
So the visibility is actually the topic that we're going to take upon today, because I think you've got a lot of deep insights in terms of what visibility is and how to get visible and why is it important, and is visibility for everyone? So that is something that I'd like to ask you. But let me start with a small question. What brings you to Step this year? How do you find this environment and this ecosystem compared to probably previous years?
So I am a huge fan of Step, a huge fan. My company is 14 years old, so we were born at the same time as Step was. And I remember meeting Ray 14 years ago and Make Business Hub at the very, very first Step. And we discussed TI22 being a video production partner at that time. And it was very early days, so I wasn't quite ready to jump in at that level. And to see just how far it keeps growing year on year is simply outstanding. I'm so impressed. I'm so proud. I'm so touched, because it's one of those events where you truly bump into everyone in the community. So it feels like a great reunion. So I'm really impressed by this year's event.
How do you see this changing? So, I mean, compared to what you saw, let's say, I think it was about 11 years ago, or maybe 14, as you fairly mentioned. Anyway, so how do you see that part has evolved? Is it more visible? Is it different? Practices are different. People are different. Ecosystem is different. So what are the biggest highlights in terms of the change?
I think Step has always been one of those events that has its finger on the pulse. So you'll find that new stages get added, new sessions get added. Even I think a couple of years ago when they started to really focus on wellness, that came in. This year we're seeing a huge emphasis on tech, obviously with the AI component becoming part of everybody's world. For me personally, this year I was actually on a wellness panel.
Really?
Although, I'm in the video industry and there's so much happening on the tech side of things, it was a case of do you go on the AI panel or do you go on the wellness panel? And, we were discussing mental health. And I honestly think that's one of the biggest changes, because if you look at maybe the earlier editions, you wouldn't have had panels discussing those kind of topics.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think, one of the biggest things is just always finger on the pulse, evolving with the time and making sure that there's content that is relevant to founders and the ecosystem.
Why do you think the wellness conversation is important, and specifically probably for the content, for the video business, for the filming business? Why is it important? I mean, since you've been part of the panel, it's definitely seems like a very, very important thing to implement here in Dubai. But zooming into your particular business, your particular company, let's say, why do you think this is relevant and important for you?
I think it is so important simply because in our industry, we are not a 9-to-5. You are an organization where, you're filming at night, you're filming on the weekends, you're filming at very, very unsociable hours. And it's very easy to let, your work-life balance fall away. And I would honestly say that our industry doesn't have work-life balance. You have work-life integration. You have to find ways of making things work, but also maintaining your mental health at the same time. So as a result, I think it's critical for industries that are based on live events, that are based on live TV, on real-time activity, because you can't suddenly switch off. You have to be on. So how do you look after yourself even though you know that you consistently have to have that momentum to achieve?
And do you have any specific practices that you've shared about your company, let's say, or how do you, as a CEO of your own company, how do you implement that?
So I think there are two different parts to this. There's what do I do personally to maintain my mental health, and there's what do I do with my team to ensure that we are consistently, staying on the right side of that. I think personally, something that really helped, and I'd advise every founder out there to do, is to surround themselves with other founders. So I'm a member of several networking organizations. I talk about BNI a lot because I'm a regional director there for 2 different regions. And honestly, because I grew my company in that community, you have other people to talk to, other people to bounce ideas off. So that was a big thing. But with my team, it's the little daily touch points that make a difference. So we do something a little unusual. I believe in the power of dance. So I actually believe, and it's something I learned from Tony Robbins about 10 years ago, that the fastest way to change your psychological state is to change your physiological state. So when I learned that, I was like, right, we are dancing every day. So we dance every day in the office. And, it does wonders. Anyone who's feeling depressed, deflated, down, within seconds you see them
releasing it out of the body.
See them evolve. So I think it's doing slightly unusual things like that. But even things like we have a gratitude chat, and that means that if anyone wants to thank anyone or appreciate anyone throughout the day, they put a message in the gratitude chat. It's these little tiny touch points that you need to consistently, ensure you're looking at the positive side of life and not allowing the weight of the world to pull you down.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So thank you for sharing these practices. Maybe, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the companies will just take this practice and try to implement it straight away. So, and then jumping to the visibility and the power of video conversation. So let's touch upon visibility. So visibility to me is, it can be a very niche down conversation, or it can be a broader one that touches upon, self-confidence and marketing as well from the business perspective, but also the way you can execute, the way you can achieve, right? Being visible. So what is visibility to you? How do you understand that? How do you promote the visibility theme out there through your content, let's say?
So I think my understanding of the word visibility and my journey with it has changed so much in 10 years. Simply because, I'm Arabic. I grew up in a culture, and as many people have, whether you're Middle Eastern or even Asian, you grow up in a culture where it feels inappropriate to put yourself out there. It almost feels like, oh, this is, what are they doing? Or you start even looking down on people who are doing it. Like, why are they doing it? It's like such an ego play. They must be looking for attention. So you start with that narrative, and I genuinely, for quite a long time, felt very uncomfortable putting myself out there because I thought, why? What do I have to share? What is the point of this? Do I just want attention? And that's changed so much because I've realized that we're in an era where perception is reality. We're in an era right now where if you are not managing that narrative, you're not managing that dialogue, it's being managed for you.
Absolutely.
So you need to get out there. You need to, tell the stories the way you need. Share your achievements because it's not bragging. It's actually building your credibility. And the minute these shifts started to happen for me, I realized this is a must-have for everybody. And it's actually labeled in my diary as business development. So every single morning I have, I've got my meeting, my huddles, and then I have LinkedIn immediately underneath, and that is like a sacred time, which is my business development time, because the more visible I am, the more I put myself out there sharing what I'm up to, my lessons, my insights, my learnings, and more than anything, adding value for other people. Because if people learn something from what I put out there, that's when the relationship starts. I've seen my business grow, and I've seen myself attract new opportunities just because I've been consistent and visible on my social media, for example. But I think it doesn't end on social media. It's coming to events like this. It's coming on a stage. It's networking with people. It's being comfortable to start putting yourself out there, because that is when people see what you have to offer and they're ready to offer you those opportunities.
I mean, a few points that you mentioned here are absolutely amazing, and they resonate with what I always would like, with the little dialogue that is always in my head in terms of, specifically in this region, probably in many other regions as well, showing up always is often taken as showing off, right? And my question to you, how do you think we as a region, as an ecosystem, as a person who belongs to a content industry and the video industry specifically, how do we need to promote a different message? So what kind of efforts we all need to combine together to make sure that we're understood in the right way? And then my second part of the question was actually around what motivated you at the very start of your journey, considering, you know, the stigma that you and I perhaps as well were brought into, like where, you know, going out there, being visible was not popular. What motivated you to still go in there?
I think honestly, a lot of what goes through people's mind is that they're worried about what other people think. And I learned something a while ago, which actually has given me peace. You know, I learned that a third of the people you come across will hate you, a third of them will love you, and a third of them are indifferent. You know, they're neutral. And the minute I really came to terms with that, I'm like, I don't need everyone to love me. I am speaking to the third of my audience who resonate with my message, who are going to learn something from it, who will maybe want to work with me in the future. The other 2/3, not my business, not my problem. So, and I think if people can get out of their own way and stop overanalyzing before they put anything out there. So I think one is like, stop trying to please everybody. The second that really I think is essential is to stop thinking about yourself, because the content you're putting out is not about you. It's about how do you serve others. And what's fascinating is that I consider myself a very confident person. I'm confident in my subject matter. I'm confident in the video. I know how to share my expertise. I'm not necessarily, I can sometimes be self-conscious, and they're different things. So just because I've got more gray today or I've put on more weight, a lot of people use these areas to feel, oh, I can't go on camera today. Oh, I'm not wearing makeup today. Oh, I'm not. And these self-conscious, that self-conscious dialogue that you're having, no one cares. You know, no one actually cares. It's all internal, as long as you're adding value. So I think if you focus on adding value in your content, you will start to get over these hurdles. The third thing that I've come across a number of times, I always mention Lucy Chow because, she's someone who's well known in the investment space. And when we started working with her, she actually said, why would I bother doing this? Everything I have to share is already available on Google, now on ChatGPT. You know, everything about you can Google, you can find it out. What's the point? You know, they can find it out themselves. I said, yeah, but how many of them, she's Chinese, and like, how many of them are Chinese with your level of experience living in the Middle East and female? You have a unique voice. And the minute everyone understands that you have your own unique voice that will resonate with people differently, there is value to what you have to share. Just start, and stop overthinking. And for those who are a bit self-conscious, I'm going to share a tip, which is maybe an unpopular one, but it's one that helped me. I don't rewatch my content. So there are a lot of people who'll say, watch it, analyze, learn from it, get better from it. And I'm like, but you know what? For a certain subset of people who are self-conscious, the minute they rewatch, they now feel, oh no, I should have done it this way. I should have done it that way. Oh, I don't look right. Oh, I can't post it. And there's, I know people who wait weeks before they put a post out because they're in that should I not? If you just get rid of that and just post, if you don't watch it again, as long as you know you've added value in that piece of content, I'm probably not going to watch this podcast. But I know that I'm sharing enough value and tips and advice in
you
this,
absolutely are.
That it's going to benefit somebody. Does it matter how I sit, how I look, how I feel? No, someone else is taking something away.
If you add a little bit towards what motivated you at the very start of the journey to still go to the niche, which was not popular.
To be honest, I've been passionate about the video and TV space since I was a kid.
Right.
So I've always been a massive consumer of content.
Right.
And when I was 16, I had this amazing opportunity to intern at MBC when they were in the UK. And that was my first insight into what happens behind the scenes. And I was fascinated, and honestly, my career grew from that point. I think the real turning point of putting myself in front of the camera is probably COVID. I started to, just before COVID, I was seeing a lot of people on stage who I resonated with. And I was like, well, if they can do it, if they're not that different from me, why is it they can do it and I'm struggling? I give credit to Omar Tom because he's someone I remember seeing on stage, and he literally said how uncomfortable he was, how it was something he didn't enjoy doing. And I was like, yeah, that's me. I'm uncomfortable and I don't enjoy doing it. So, and I went and I had a chat with him, and he's like, honestly, just start. He said, just start, I'll be your number one fan. And I think COVID forced everybody to communicate online, Zooms, webinars, and that was the only way I could survive as a business, was to really double down on what can I do in my home, as most of us did. So embracing it, and I think also just realizing that I'm in the video industry. I can't honestly tell people to do this if I'm not doing it myself. So it's one of those where it started to become hypocritical.
You have to do it.
You can't tell someone you need to be out there. And I'm like, well, hang on, I'm not out there. And that's a big thing I get at the moment. I know we're going to talk about my boot camp, but I originally started the boot camp because I'm in the TV space, and a lot of presenters used to message me saying, oh, how do I get on TV? And I realized that, well, there aren't many opportunities, but at a minimum, get into a TV studio. Let's learn. Let's understand the skills you need. And, in that conversation, I would look up people's social profiles, and they'd have private accounts, and they wouldn't be putting any content out. And I said, how do you expect somebody to put you on TV if when I Google you and when I look for you, your account is private and I can't see anything? So I think it's also that realization that if you want to be more visible, you want to attract opportunities, it starts with you putting yourself out there.
It's interesting how much whatever you're saying resonates with me, but I want to add, to be fair, I don't think there are people who feel absolutely comfortable getting out there in front of the camera. I mean, we all feel, to a certain degree, we feel differently, definitely, but it's always uncomfortable. You need to think about what you say, right?
I agree with you that everyone is uncomfortable. I agree. And I agree it's an abnormal thing to do. Totally agree. But we're in an era right now where it matters. We're in an era right now where, what someone watches on social media for those, 10 seconds can impact whether they reach out to you for a new opportunity or whether they don't call you again. That's the power of it.
Exactly.
So I think, whether you like it or not, you have to find a way to normalize it. And normalizing it means, I've got my cameraman filming right now. It's making it part of your day-to-day life, so it's not like, oh, I need to prepare for the camera. It's like, how do you pick up a camera and just start? I have friends who are very uncomfortable, and I said to them in the very beginning, just start doing a selfie video and send it to me. Don't post it. Just get into the habit and comfort zone of sharing content, sharing value, and gradually you'll see that with practice, you're able to do it more confidently. So I think it's just starting.
Yeah, and I can see that you're doing a lot of efforts in terms of, making people overcome themselves and overcoming that uncomfortable zone and getting into out there. So I wanted to ask you about visibility, and so one of the points that you mentioned was thinking about the value that we bring in versus anything else, how you look and everything. But we're living also in the era where we've got platforms like TikTok and Instagram, where probably hype and the way you look is much more important than what you say. So what would you recommend? How do you balance that? Because I always feel like, okay, we are having the B2B conversations that are pretty deep, probably tougher to consume, and they're longer, right? They are definitely for the audience that thinks, for the audience that is looking for, some education, some learnings, tips, etc. Definitely less entertaining. And I always feel like, do I need to actually be more entertaining, right, in what I'm doing? But I don't feel it's like part of me. I like humor, but I'm not... I'm not a hype person as such. Right?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because I think the two most popular types of content are education and entertainment. And I don't think you need to do both. I don't think I'm funny. I also think that what you find funny and what I find funny are two completely different things. So why would I want to try doing that? Double down on education. And I think everyone needs to think for themselves, what is your objective? Why are you even doing this? And who are you trying to reach? And creating the content accordingly to meet that that objective. So in my case, I work with a lot of broadcasters, I work with a lot of government entities and corporates. Does it matter if I have a fun TikTok? Probably not, but does it matter that I'm creating thought leadership content about this space on LinkedIn? Yes, that is going to get me in front of the right people, and I'm going to build that connection and hopefully attract the opportunity. For someone else, perhaps in the gaming space, perhaps trying to target a younger demographic where TikTok is where their audience is, then yes, that's where you need to figure out how to reach them in a way that they will consume it. So I think every founder and every business needs to think for themselves as to where is their audience, how are they consuming that content, and trying to fill that gap and provide value in that space. And you don't have to be everywhere. Having said that, I do follow the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world and Alex Hormozis, who I think I heard something this week where he said he had something crazy like 14 pieces of content a day. They have machines behind them to do this. They have teams upon teams who can do this. I think I read that Gary Vaynerchuk has 29 people on his content team. Most founders or smaller entities have 1, 2, 3 handful of people
even having one
or doing it themselves, right? So which is why you want to be strategic and you want to think, what is my objective, who am I trying to reach, and what is the best piece of content, whether it's education or entertainment, that will get me to that end objective.
But does it start with the authenticity of the personality, or does it start with the objective?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I don't think it's either or. My objective is to attract more opportunities in the TV training consulting space. I happen to be passionate about the space. So when I'm sharing content about it, I'm sharing my opinions. I'm being authentic about that sharing.
Yeah, that's true.
So in my opinion, I think I'm ticking both boxes. I don't think it's either or. Yeah,
so I'm just asking that question, just a clarification to make sure that we articulate that. Usually it ticks both boxes once you sort of you made that choice, you start producing content, and then with a few pieces you find your voice, because you're addressing your audience anyway, right? When you're producing your content, naturally you are addressing the audience that you want to address, unless you allow your alter ego to talk for you, but that's a different story, isn't it?
But I also wonder, you want to attract people that resonate with you, so you it's in your interest to be yourself, because, you want to have that connection. And it's surprising me more and more, because I grew up in a very traditional TV world, where, I was always in TV studios. And when you're in that environment, you feel that the only people who, have fame are the ones in front of the camera, right? That's pretty much it. Nowadays, just even here at Step, I've bumped into 10 people who I don't know, but they're following me on LinkedIn.
That's true.
They're following me on LinkedIn and go, oh, I've watched it, I've consumed this, I love this, I appreciate this inspires me. We're now in an era where everyone is a mini celebrity. It's about how you position yourself, and they're coming up to me because they're relating and resonating with my voice. And you can do the same, and everyone out there can do the same. And I think people haven't realized the power that they have in their pocket, and it's as simple as them sharing their own insights, and that will get them to the next level.
It has become so decentralized, as I call it, right? So it used to be controlled by bigger brands, and I'm gradually coming up to you, the conversation about video as a tool, and probably how this whole content creation business is changing, and it's evolving, suggesting and attracting a totally different business models for the brands as well. So it's a huge shift. And we had a few conversations yesterday about definitely the role of AI and how it's disrupting this industry. But I want to ask, and I want to hear your point of view in terms of how do you see the traditional TV setup. Definitely has changed some time back, right? But it continues to with a huge speed. It continues to shape up how we do marketing, right? How do we monetize and prioritize our budgets in terms of the business model? If you're a small company, maybe would you prefer to act as a media company, right? Instead of doing the traditional sales. So what's your point of view? How it is evolving from a traditional TV setup? Where is TV now?
Well, it's an interesting question because I'm one of the only people who's still producing traditional TV. So, we produce a daily TV show on Dubai One. I love the show. I love the channel. I've been working with them for a long time, and I still believe there's a place for traditional TV, especially in this region, because of the credibility that is associated with it. So, and I see the difference. I see the difference when we invite a guest onto the TV show versus inviting them onto a YouTube show. The minute they know that it's on a broadcaster, they're ready to come and they're ready to be there. Which means that as much as the viewership and the reach is definitely on the digital side, the credibility and the pull is still on the traditional side. So it's about how do you merge the two? How do you take these traditional brands and assets, and we're seeing it in other parts of the world. I think I read something about, ITV content now collaborating. I'm not sure if it's with YouTube, and so you're starting to see more traditional channels and broadcasters put their content online to leverage, the credibility of the brand along with the reach of a digital platform. So I think that's one. I think the second is how we're consuming it, because I keep hearing these statistics about YouTube and the fact that nowadays, I think it's 52% of YouTube is consumed on a TV set.
Really?
Which is fascinating, right?
Exactly.
Because it means
that,
true. We're still actually coming around a TV channel, TV set rather, but you're streaming that YouTube content on the set. So we're still watching TV, it's just the content is coming from somewhere else, right? So that's interesting. I think the third thing that I realized is this year, I should say last year, I went to Cannes twice. I went to MIP TV and I went to MIPCOM, which are traditionally TV events. They're events where you connect with broadcasters. The majority of the discussions were about YouTube, and I think, I went to a TV conference to talk about YouTube, and I think you can't deny it anymore. You can't deny the power of the platform. I tried 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I launched Dubai On Demand with a view to us creating niche YouTube content. And we were just too early. Like in this market, no one really, understood. But I think now, 10 years later, and YouTube is now 20 years old, now is a time where if I were you, I would start creating your YouTube shows for brands out there. Your question about where to put your money, start looking at building the IP, working with personalities, and looking how you can grow your own content and your own reach, because the platform is available and free for everyone to get involved.
Absolutely. I think you've just nailed with what you've just said. You've nailed something that I call bridging the two worlds, because one of the conversations that we had as well here, how do we bridge the world of the bigger corporation, the bigger brands, and the startup ecosystem? And this is exactly what you are sort of nailing down here. So talking about traditional TV and the creators economy and all the different channels out there. Do you think they're complementing each other?
I think they can.
So, and when they bring into each other, let's put it this way.
I think they can. And for a moment, I'm just going to step into our boot camp, because something very interesting is happening there. I started on air as a boot camp because there were so many presenters who wanted to be on TV. And, gradually what I'm seeing, we've been running it for a couple of years now, the type of people who are coming in aren't always the wannabe presenters. They are the CEOs, the business owners, the consultants, the coaches who want to grow their visibility. And they want to learn the tools. They want to understand how to be a host. And the number one lesson that I'm teaching is that, you can't wait for a TV station anymore. A TV station isn't going to come knocking and offer you a TV show. You need to now create your own show and do that on the online space, create a YouTube show, and that's when you build your own traction that a TV station may come knocking because they can see what you've created. So it's empowering people to understand this isn't rocket science. You need to gain the confidence. And coming back to our earlier discussion, it is possible. And I've seen people who come in the morning feeling really nervous, and by the end of the day feel very transformed.
Nice.
And that's why I love doing it, because you have an impact on people's journey. We've got one example, Arva. I think many people know her. She's from Frying Pan Adventures. She came to our workshop, and this is a great example of exactly the traditional and the digital bridging gaps. She came to our workshop, I want to say about 9 months ago. Someone I really felt had a lot of potential, because I follow her on her Instagram. I can see she has personality, and she genuinely came in just with a blank slate thinking, let me learn. She got so excited and so energized that she's like, okay, I need to start my own YouTube show. So we've been working with her to create a channel called Ditch the Silver, all in the food space. She's a foodie. She does a great job. And just after a few episodes, we were able to get it on Emirates airline, Emirates Ice, right? So already that's bridging a bit of a gap, right? And just this week, I've had a confirmation from OSN that they're interested in taking that further. So my point being is that we're seeing examples of where even in our ecosystem, you can have someone literally go from being uncomfortable on camera to building a YouTube channel to it being picked up by a TV network. And it's in your own hands, it's in your control, and it's all based on that very first point of you putting yourself out there.
So definitely the traditional TV, they open the doors to your, creators who've got a very unique voice and something that can probably create either faster or more meaningful impact, let's say. So how do you see from the trends perspective, content trends perspectives, what do you see as getting more popular, heard, visible? So what types of formats, how do you look for the new formats, let's say?
So I happen to be someone who loves learning, so I'm always kind of seeing what's happening around the world, and time and time again you hear about how ultimately game shows, competitions, anything that has people competing in some way tends to do well, and it translates across all kind of languages as well. So if you're looking at larger formats, I know that that's a space that's doing well. We're seeing more reality content in this space as well, and obviously the docu-reality. So we're starting to do more work in that area. But for me, I'm more passionate about getting all of these thought leaders and experts to just start creating more educational content. Because at the end of the day, even though you have the resources at your disposal, it's what you learn from an individual, it's that credibility that you have from someone that elevates that knowledge and that relationship. So what I believe we're going to see even more is just more people like you and me, average, day-to-day, average Joe, really embracing social media and creating even more content to teach people. Because I think education is still what excites people, even in an era of AI. With AI taking over, I know in our case, our training is what is growing momentum, because people still want that face-to-face connection and want to learn. So that's what I believe we'll continue to see.
And I think face-to-face connection and the insights that we're generating in a real conversation, something that people would always feel versus AI, because my question was around how do you feel AI disrupting your business, for example, and where are you left?
Yeah.
What are you left with as a business, as a personality as well?
I think it's totally disrupting our business. Mm-hmm. And if anything, I'm with my team consistently asking, did you use AI today? Have you used AI today? Did you use AI in this video? Because
I like how you're forward thinking, honestly, with everything. Yeah,
it's important.
Instead of like, no.
It's important. We did I think last year, we did an AI challenge over the summer where I insisted everybody on the team tries different AI tools every day, because it's moving at such a pace that we can't keep up. And we're in an industry which nowadays, with the Soras of the world, you can give a prompt and out pops the video, So I'm very aware that the way we offer things is no longer going to be relevant maybe 6 months from now, which is why as an industry that we only have two options, right? We only have embracing it as an option, which is like, okay, people are still going to want video. Not everyone is going to want to learn how to do it. Yeah. We need to learn and make sure we're at the forefront of using AI tools and being enabled by AI to be faster and produce better content. So embracing it is one, and then also pivoting is the other, which is why we are doubling down on our media training and what we do in that space, because exactly what I mentioned, the face-to-face is important. And I would say the third is that we are still in the TV space, and in some ways that is still a little bit out of reach from day-to-day Joe, so it may take a little longer before someone can turn around and say, I can produce a fully fledged TV show. Although, so if anything, I'm very, proud of DXB Today and what we do with Dubai One and other TV networks, and hopefully that will continue at least for a few more years.
So what would be your recommendations in searching for the new formats and the topics to discuss and, start recording the content? If we're not talking about business and not necessarily about business, and so the educational content, as you mentioned, that double down on that if you're creating content, because it's not enough. how would you recommend to choose the niche in which you educate? Yeah,
I think you need to pick a niche that you are passionate about, because then it comes naturally, then it's genuine, then it's not hard work, because you're probably already researching it yourself.
True.
You're already engrossed in it yourself, versus it feeling like homework. We worked with a lawyer years ago, and I always found this interesting because she knows everything about the law, and she used to create a lot of educational content about the law, and then she just stopped. And I asked her what happened. She said, she's like, I speak law, I talk law, I'm in the office all day, and now I'm creating content about law. I don't want to do it. I'm not enjoying it. I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, okay, what do you enjoy?
That's true.
And she said, I'm actually really passionate about founder stories. I'm like, great, start doing that. And the minute she started creating content about founders, it's like she got excited and it reignited her passion, and it built that consistency again. Whatever niche you go into, you need to be passionate enough about it to keep the consistency. Whether you're happy, whether you're sad, whether it's a good day, a bad day, you need to be in a space where I want to share this and I'm passionate enough about it. So when you're choosing, it isn't always the area that you're the most experienced in, and it isn't always the area that is your day job. Sometimes it's just the area that you have huge passion for and know the most about.
I agree. Those are the excellent tips, I think, and I wish we could continue that conversation, because I think we touched upon a few important points, and the amount of insights you've shared on this short conversation is really, really enormous, and I really, really would like to continue this dialogue after probably pop-up studio, because we've got plenty of things happening in the podcasters community as well, events including. So I really think we should continue sort of this as a collaboration, as a dialogue, because I think the depths is out there, and I am actually very passionate about innovation in the space of content and how you can not sort of deny the power and the credibility of the traditional TV, but it's just that it's so hard to reach, and it probably should be hard to reach, right? But how do you bridge and how do you bring in the best into what people are still doing anyway in their YouTube channels or any other streaming platforms?
I think just to round this up, I want to mention that I do genuinely think that this is something for everybody. I don't think this is something that only a few people should do, only if you're a CEO you should do, no. We're in an era where everyone needs to do this. I've launched a community called Mission Visible, and the whole objective behind that community is just to get you started. Just be around people. We're in the year of community. Be around people who are on the same journey. Be around people who want to get out there and maybe don't know how, need the tips, needs the tools, need the tricks. Podcasting is a big part of that, but how do you just get started?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I really want to encourage everyone to just surround yourself with people who are on that journey, learn little by little every day, and just start. And I promise you, when you start to normalize it, that's when it becomes easy to do. And my favorite catchphrase, if you're not visible, you're invisible.
That's a lovely phrase. I love it. Love it, love it. Thank you so much, Reem, for joining us today at the pop-up studio at Step 2025. I hope you're having a great day the rest of your hours here. And I absolutely invite you to continue this dialogue after this event too.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.